Hi everyone, welcome back. You're still with us here on the C Morning Show, and we are just past the halfway point of our program. And since we're still in the middle of the holy month of Ramadan, or almost in the middle, before we get into our second discussion, I want to ask my colleague Ralphie, take us through what your dietary intake is throughout the month of Ramadan for one day.
Throughout the Ramadan, so
You break your fast.
I gained this momentum to lose weight as well.
Okay.
So I've been gaining weight the past year because I had ACL procedures,
Right.
and I had a surgery.
Okay.
I gained lots of weight, so I'm taking this time to lose weight.
Okay.
So I don't do sahur. I don't eat anything. I just drink water.
Okay.
And I just eat everything when it's iftar time.
Okay.
To
So
probably
that's how
10, 11 p.m.
Oh,
That's
okay.
what I do. What do you do?
You and I both similar as well.
Well, we look different. You look really
Well,
fit,
because
Paul.
I kind of do it all year round to begin with, so I'm kind of more used to it. But yeah, interesting.
Yes, and we all know that fasting in the month of Ramadan is an obligation for Muslims. But aside from that, fasting could also be beneficial to health. So according to the Health Ministry, fasting could help regulate blood sugar levels, reduce inflammation, maintain cardiac health, improve brain function, and increase growth hormones production. But still, to enjoy those benefits, one must balance fasting with etiquette, but not excessive food intake.
Uh-oh, I might have gone overboard a couple of times.
For me too, Paul. For me too.
Well, joining us this morning to discuss more about meeting our nutritional needs while we're fasting is friend of the program and nutritionist Nindhita Priscillia. Good morning, my Nindhita. Thank you for joining us again. Welcome back.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, so let's talk about nutrients. There's a worry that when we fast, we lose nutrients because there's like a window of like 15 hours where we don't eat at all whatsoever. So what sort of nutrients do we lose generally when we fast?
Okay, so our body may be altered, especially our metabolism during fasting, especially in many countries, it can take up to 14, 13, 15 until 16 hours a day. So our body are entering a prolonged state of fasting. So that's why we need to prepare our body before we embark on fasting for a long period of day.
Okay.
So that's why there are certain nutrients, of course, that are depleting throughout the day. And specifically, when we metabolize our body works in coordination and to converse the energy supply, all the necessities that our body needs as a source of fuel. Mm-hmm. And it is really important for us to know that the first thing that is metabolized by our body as a main source of fuel is glucose in the form of glycogen, and which is stored in liver and muscles. And then after that, as fasting progresses, our body alters to an alternative main source of fuel, which is fat storage.
Correct.
That's why we need to ensure what we store in our body in terms of nutrients really meet the demands of our daily needs.
Okay, basically we have, to put it simply in layman's terms, we have to store the right type of fuel in our body so that when we're ready to burn it off, it's going to use the right amount of fuel. And as well, different sources of fuel, so to speak, will give us different types of energy. For example, if we're burning fat, it'll give us it's a more efficient type of energy to burn, correct?
Yes, but basically, when we have certain storage of glucose and fat, and we can maximize the fat burning by eating certain food and also engaging in certain physical activity. But the first thing we need to really focus on is to incorporate balanced diet, nutrition, of course, during our pre-dawn meal or sahur, and then to make sure that throughout that period of time, when we break our fasting during iftar, we can consume more, to increase our blood glucose and also to recover and to replenish all the nutrition loss that we've lost throughout the day.
Right. There you go. Good news for you then.
Yay! Hooray for me. So this is my first time actually talking to Nindhita. I have little to none knowledge about nutrients. So exactly, this got me thinking, what are the effects of an unbalanced nutrition? You mentioned it earlier, but what are the effects for that?
Okay, so unbalanced nutrition is basically when you consume too much or too little source of nutrients, which may include proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, vitamins, minerals, fibers. And when you consume it too little, you can be deficient in these source of nutrient, including macronutrient and micronutrient. And when you consume it a little too much, it can be excessive. And sometimes it might lead to what we call as positive energy balance, or when you exceed your daily calorie intake and your energy expenditure is less than your energy intake.
So a surplus of calories.
Yes, a surplus basically. And on the contrary, we can call negative balanced nutrition, balanced energy, when you consume less intake and then you perform very much energy expenditure. So that's
this
why.
Is like what Ralphie's doing, right?
Not really.
Too,
Oh,
You're eating less calories and burning more, so that you are trying to lose weight, right?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. It depends on the goals of your.
At the end of the day, it is.
At the end of the day, but then we need to also make sure to know that unbalanced nutrition and not only impact on our physiology, but also our metabolism and also mental health and well-being.
Really?
Interestingly, that when we consume unbalanced nutrition, there's a tendency for us to consume high calorie food and also that high in salt, sugar, fats, and oftentimes unhealthy fats. So that's why when we consume this sugar, fat, and salt, in excessive amount, it may lead to development of certain metabolic syndrome, including hypertension, diabetes, and cholesterol. And that's what we need to really pay attention, especially during the month of Ramadan, when we have these festivities to eat of food that rich in salt.
And it's no coincidence, right? Like this is what our body craves. That's why sometimes when we have like a whole spread in front of us, we're drawn to certain foods, right?
I think we need to normalize as well food cravings, because sometimes we are so afraid of craving some certain foods, and some food cravings can caused by eating maybe we underfat during our sahur, or not eating enough after prolonged fasting, like during iftar, and therefore we need to ensure that our plate contains of a very balanced diet. Like a quarter of our plate, make sure that it contains carbohydrates, healthy source of carbohydrates like complex carbohydrates.
Could you give us some examples?
Like rice brown, or brown rice, and then multi-grains. And boiled potatoes.
Boiled potatoes.
Yeah, boiled potatoes.
Not French fries.
Not French fries, but boiled potatoes. And then we can also consume, make sure to include protein, animal-based and plant-based source of proteins. And we need to make sure that when we process our proteins, we can also encourage raw to minimally processed food rather than the highly processed food, because it might lead to increasing inflammation in our body. That inflammation may lead to the alteration of our cognitive functions and mood, and many others, including our cravings into food. So that's why we need to balance this out, not only for our metabolism and our physiology state and our nutritional status, but also our mental health and well-being.
So prioritize whole foods.
Yes.
Always, I mean, even when we're not in the month of Ramadan, always try to stay, minimize your processed food. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that when I've also read that when you are breaking your fast, so for iftar, your body, because you haven't been feeding yourself for hours, is very susceptible to what you eat first. So your body is going to absorb it more than other foods that you have it later on. Exactly, and as well, the opposite is true for, like you mentioned, for sahur. If you're having sahur, the last things that you feed yourself is what you're going to be storing over for the next few hours. So what sort of foods, if you could give us some examples, should we be prioritizing when we break our fast and when we prepare to fast?
Okay, so when we break our fast, I think it's really important for us to digest our body, like prioritizing natural sources of glucose from dates, probably. Well, our Prophet had taught us to consume dates first when to break our fast, instead of consuming artificial sugar from sweetened beverages. So you can consume like 1 or 3 dates before you eat your whole meal.
Okay.
And then maybe when you can perform your prayer first, and then afterwards you can eat your full meal. But then maybe you can start slowly by starting with protein first, and then all together with fruits and vegetables. And don't forget to ensure that a healthy plate might include half of it may consist of fruit and vegetables.
Right.
So it contains so many fruits and vegetables, and that's why I think in Indonesia the food cultures is also really sometimes preventing us to consume these sources.
Yeah, by the way, I mean, if I can add, sometimes when we have especially a group or family breaking fast together, we're always drawn to the gorengan, the fried food.
Deep
Because
fried food.
for some reason, it's the culture. It's like, hey, have some gorengan to start before you break. And that's actually, I've learned now to put that after the meal. Like if I'm still hungry, then I can have that later.
During a diet, you don't put it anywhere sometimes.
Exactly. So how about sahur then?
Yeah.
Okay, so for sahur, we need to ensure again, because we need to meet the daily recommendation of nutrient intake, we need to ensure again eating a balanced diet to ensure that we have enough and proper nutrients, especially proteins, because proteins is digested really slowly in our body, so it makes us full even longer, and then it helps us to get stronger. And it also reduces cravings as well.
Okay.
And I think it's really beneficial for us to really incorporate a healthy source of protein, such as maybe fish, or chicken, or anything that really locally available in your area.
Yeah.
And in Indonesia, I think people tend to eat like not really unhealthy food, but sometimes there's a tendency for us to consume food that high in calorie but low in nutrient then.
Because we're trying to load up because we think I'm not going to eat for hours.
Yes.
I better eat like as much as
Sometimes
I can.
when you eat deep fried food, it equals to the calorie intake might equal to 1 full meal with a balanced nutrition. So it's very unfortunate if we fulfill our energy requirement with only deep fried food that contains only natrium, salt, and carbohydrates. So again, eating carbohydrates not necessarily make us full and not necessarily make us stronger.
Right.
So therefore, we need to incorporate this vitamins, minerals, proteins.
Is that why sometimes if we feel like, oh, I got to eat a lot because I'm going to fast, but then we feel hungry only a few hours later because we are loading up on the wrong foods?
Not really wrong. What matters is what we eat constantly.
Okay.
So when we eat only one at a time, I think it won't be that much of a problem. But if you consume that kind of dietary pattern throughout the whole month, I think it would make yourself even more tired than than you're supposed to be.
Right, lethargic.
Because you kind of feel lethargic. You can feel moody as well because you're not eating well. Because as I said previously, it might link to improvement of mood. And as we know from Ministry of Health as well, that fasting can improve our rhythmic, cardiac rhythmic, heart health, and metabolism. So therefore, we need to really ensure to prioritize this minimally raw to minimally processed foods in order to go on during fast.
This is years and years of research and education for Nindhita. Thank you for sharing it with us. Now, before we move on, many misconceptions surrounding fasting and nutrition still remain out there. So before we continue our discussion, here we have some common beliefs that need to be clarified for.
Okay.
So let's start with the first statement. It's
Asking for a friend. Go ahead.
It's a fact or myth.
Here we go. Let's have a look.
Okay.
All right. This is the fact or myth.
There we go. It's up there on the big board.
Oh, it's right behind us as well.
Okay.
Fasting can help you lose weight. Fact or myth?
It's not that black and white.
Yeah.
Explain
really-
which part is
okay.
myth, which one is fact.
Okay, so it's not really a myth either because it really depends on what you consume during sahur and during iftar, and also depends on the physical activity level that you're engaged with. and I think mild to moderate and combined by balanced nutrition diet, maybe, well, you can lose a couple of pounds, but then you may regain throughout the time. And so the fluctuation of body weight is really normal during this fasting state. And I think the research results are also inconclusive when it comes to losing weight after a month of fasting, because it has been shown that people with different characteristics have shown different results in terms of their weight, metabolism, and their biochemistry levels in their body. So if you ask whether fasting can help you in losing weight or not, well, if you consume less energy intake during the sahur, and then throughout the day you engage in mild to moderate physical activity, probably you might lose like a couple, one until a couple of pounds.
So at the end of the day, it's about calorie intake and what.
Yeah, if you're still in a calorie deficit, then it's kind of like intermittent fasting anyway, right?
Exactly.
If you're in a calorie deficit, you're going to lose weight, whereas I have a different metabolism. I am used to intermittent fasting, so I don't even sahur like you, but I can maintain my weight. In fact, at one point, I can even gain weight if I want.
See, it's been a week and I'm losing a couple pounds already.
I can see it.
Yeah.
I can see you're a little bit slimmer over here.
Thank you very much, Paul. So this is factor myth number 2. Consuming more carbs at sahur helps people feel fuller and stronger when fasting. Paul mentioned this earlier.
Yeah, we have discussed it earlier. Again, well, I can say that is a myth.
Right.
Yeah, I can say that is a myth that carbohydrates at sahur can make us fuller. Well, yes, but not necessarily stronger, because as I said previously, that we need to consume animal-based and also plant-based of proteins. Make sure to include proteins in your diet in order to promote recovery throughout the day, and also to maintain your fullness even longer. And then also it reduces cravings, and there are a lot of other amazing things that proteins can give you.
Absolutely. Carbohydrates make me sleepy, so actually my body uses fat and proteins better as fuel.
But that's the perception sometimes. You get more full when you eat carbs. So that's the portion-wise here. When I see a lot of people, my friends are eating, a lot of rice, a little bit of protein and veggies, but we have to switch that around, right? More proteins and veggies, less carbs.
Yeah, really. As I said previously, a plate of a healthy recommendation contains like a quarter of a healthy carbohydrates, and then a quarter of proteins, healthy proteins, and also half of it includes fruits and vegetables.
Fruits and vegetables, right?
So,
remember that, everyone. So this is the last statement, myth or fact. Eating sweets at iftar can fulfill your sugar needs.
I think I know this one. Go ahead, Doc.
Eating sugars, sweet foods at iftar can fulfill your sugar needs.
It may, right?
It may. It depends on what kind of sweet foods that you consume.
Is it natural or artificial?
Is it natural or artificial? Yes. So both really help us to spike our blood glucose after a long day of fasting. But then we need to choose, again, natural sources of glucose as much as possible from fruits. Or don't forget as well to increase your fluids in order to keep yourself hydrated. And it is also really important to, when we increase our other sources of healthier options or food groups, we can reduce these cravings towards some sweet foods. Like when we consume half of our plate contains of fruit and fruit and vegetables, I think we can, research have shown that we can reduce our cravings into some sweet or some foods that are high in calorie. So that's why it's really fulfilling. And especially when you're incorporated it with mindful eating approach. While eating this food, you can engage in a moment with no distraction. And be really present when you eat.
So just a quick follow-up before we go to our final question is that, sometimes people say white rice or pasta, that has a high sugar content. Does that count towards our regular sugar intake as well?
Okay, so yes.
It does?
Yes, it does. Because carbohydrates is simple carbs is glucose, basically. But sometimes it is refined carbohydrates. So make sure to, as much as you can, to limit refined carbohydrates because especially when you want to lose weight or you want to maintain weight, you can consume a more complex source of carbohydrates, as I said previously. So yeah, really balancing this food group intakes and again, combining it with mindful eating.
I like that word. Mindful is very important. Now, our final question, and I want to ask you about this because I think a lot of people are curious as well. Let's talk a bit about hydration.
Okay.
They say you can go weeks without food, but you can't even go days without water. How about hydration? Because we are dehydrated for about 15 hours, let's say, and are we getting enough water throughout the time that we are allowed to consume? And is it actually bad for us to just drink a whole bunch of water during sahur?
Okay, so our daily needs of mineral water is usually 2.5 until 3 liters per day.
Okay.
But then it depends on when you live in the world. When you live in a more hotter climate, you will need a higher source of fluids. And I think when you live in the Europe during winter, you can decrease all these mineral waters, not until 3 liters per day. But then when you live in Indonesia, especially, you can consume 3 liters per day. That may be spreaded throughout the window eating during the Ramadan. So you can spread it into maybe 2 or 3 glasses before dawn, and then 3 until 4 or 5 glasses after. But then don't bulk it up in one sit. Because
you get bloated.
Because you're gonna pee it all out.
You're gonna pee, and then it promotes your digestion even faster when you need to really absorb all this mineral water. So it's really unfortunate if you are losing this water through the excretion.
Right.
So
vitamins are all going out with it.
Make sure that you drink it one at a time. Space it out. Spread it throughout the time when fasting and sahur. Probably when you wake up 1 hour or 2 hours earlier, you can starting to drink a little by little until the pray down has finished.
Awesome.
Now, if you don't know, folks, now you know.
Thank you so much.
Very much.
Thank you very much.
I feel like I can talk more than Nindhita because I'm going through a diet right now, but we'll do it later on. We have lots of mutual friends. But now let's take a break. We'll have more updates from around the world when we return. Stay with us here, the C Morning Show. Thank you, Nindhita.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.